tweaking it, adjusting. We changed the flyer, like we're trying to, it's an experiment, right?
You're going into it.
Yeah. And I think this is great because the information that we're doing is so valuable to people. And speaking of which, we're live now.
Yay! Hi,
Aloha.
everyone.
Aloha, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another edition of FYLPRO Fridays. And again, an amazing person we're getting to chat with today, Chismisan with Lauren Lalicon. Hey, Lauren.
Hi. Happy to be
And
here. Thanks so much, Annalisa.
yeah, and I'm excited as always. Everyone has such an interesting take on what they're doing and where they're from. And I know you're in New Jersey on the East Coast this time. East Coast represent.
Yes, yes. Where are you from in the East Coast?
Well, no, I'm actually from LA,
Oh, okay.
but I worked in New York for a really long time.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah.
So I have an affinity for the East Coast, and my husband used to work in New Jersey. So
Ah,
yeah, so there's there and Red Bank, if anyone
yeah.
knows that
Everyone has a
area.
connection to Jersey. There's always ties to Jersey.
Yes, there's a large Filipino population out there, so it makes
Yeah.
sense. But I wanted people to get to know you who haven't met you yet. Tell us about I guess, your connection to FilPro and what you're doing right now.
Yeah. So when I was in college, I went to find the Filipino Networking Dialogue, and I saw a table that was run by FilPro, and I was like, that seems like a really cool organization to be a part of, but it seems like way too cool for me. I won't ever make that level of success. I won't ever join it. And then I kept I was really active in my Filipino club, so I would always go to these events. Um, and then after I graduated, I continued to stay involved. And then as I was involved, people would always mention FilPro, and someone said to me, like, you should apply when you get to, like, when you turn 25. I was like, I'm never gonna make it in. And so then I, like, on the actually the day before, no, the day of my birthday, when I was turning 25, I applied on a whim. I was like, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, then I don't. And then I got in. And at the time, I was like the youngest FilPro alumni. So it was a life-changing experience. I met friends who will be friends for life, for the rest of time. It gave me the necessary momentum to just continue my work in the Filipino community. And so, like, my legacy project was actually my nonprofit, Professional Filipino American Youth. And so it's this networking group that provides a safe space for young professionals to connect with their culture, but also build their career. So it takes, like, a lot of our members are minorities in their industries. Like, we run the gamut from, like, government to accounting, design, art, tech, so on and so forth. Like, we have a wide membership, but they're all in industries where they really are the only ones who look like themselves. There's not a lot of Filipinos. So created this organization, like, having been in government, having worked in government. Oh, which I didn't even say. I work in
The
government.
job that you have that pays the bills, you mean?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
job that pays the bills. I work as the policy director of the First Lady of New Jersey. I've been in this role since, like, 2018, but I've been working in politics for quite a while. And I am there again, like, as you can expect, there's not a lot of Asians, not a lot of Filipinos. So being in this world, I just don't have a lot of time to really connect with my culture. Whereas, like, when I was in college, I, like, had so many opportunities to meet other Filipinos. So I created this nonprofit to to bring together those who don't really see themselves in their industries just together, so that we can make, like, a united voice within, or we can just, like, build a network throughout the state. And so even though it's New Jersey, our PFA is focused on New Jersey, we have membership all across the country. Yeah, like, developing, being part of FYLPRO really built up the momentum in building out PFA. And so from there, it was just a natural transition for me to continue my work in the community. So, and then I also did, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, no, that's great, because you really are creating a support group, essentially, right? For people that don't see people like them or don't have role models in their specific industries.
Yeah, yeah. I thought I was one of the only Filipinos in New Jersey politics, and then I met someone who actually ended up running for state assembly, and I helped support him in his run for state assembly. And now he's currently working for the first Korean American woman in the state legislature, and so now I feel like I have a community where we understand what it's like to be the only ones who look like ourselves in this space, and we have each other's backs. So we developed that sort of community where people don't really have it, because it does make it, once you feel like you have someone else at your back, it makes it so much easier to do
confidence.
Yeah,
it's really about confidence, empowerment. I think your passion to me seems like building that community when we don't normally have it. When I was starting out, there wasn't very many Asian journalists, for example, right, in prominent positions. Maybe like the most famous one was Connie Chung. But I don't know if that predates you, but you heard her name. But I remember she was like the only Asian face on TV at the time, or one of very few. So yeah, I mean, I think I would have benefited from these types of organizations like yours, where you kind of, build that camaraderie and that support group. And has it been a challenge in terms of, building that membership and reaching out to people and getting them to, get out of their shell? Because again, like you said, it's almost like a confidence thing. Like you feel kind of like inhibited.
Yeah, I think with every organization, like growth is always an issue. Like you know that there's a lot of Filipinos out there, but it's just a matter of like trying to convince them to take time to. I think one issue with growing the Filipino community is that like we have a huge active base when people are in college, because like they're surrounded by other Filipinos, they're in their Filipino clubs, they're in leadership, like it's their life when they're in college. Like, if you're part of a Filipino club, and then like they graduate and they just drop off, and the opportunities to like connect with your culture just like not, or kind of limited. Mm-hmm. So it's like hard to like get people to want to come out to events, to try to take time out of their day to connect with the community, to join organizations, because they're so focused on their careers. So I think that's why we designed PFA to be like very casual, very chill, so that way people can come in and out whenever they want. And it's not like, because we understand we're all working professionals, like we're young and starting to establish our careers, like it's hard to make time.
Yeah, and there's so many other competing interests, that people have. But I thought it was interesting from your backstory that how you ended up getting into politics and public policy, because like you said, there's not very many Filipinos or Asians that enter it. So how did you end up getting into it?
Yeah, so I'll go all the way back to high school. I'll just give you that perspective. So when I was in high school, or like even grade school, I didn't really I had very low self-esteem, like to the point where I was like very much introvert. A wallflower. What?
Introvert?
Oh yeah, I was a huge introvert. Like I think I was in the running to be like most quiet, and I was actually pissed off because I didn't win most quiet. I thought I was a shoo-in for that. So, and actually this is a funny story, but like when I was in high school, it was like the second semester of our English class, someone walks into the room and he's like, "Are you in this class?" I was like, this is literally the second semester. I've been here this whole time.
You're that quiet.
Yeah. So yeah. I didn't really, I think I amounted to much when I was in college. I thought I was just going to be like, I was ready to settle down with a quiet job, like receptionist at a doctor's office. And then I like enrolled, like I went to college. I studied what I wanted to because I thought I was just gonna, settle down. So I studied international studies. That field is very hard to break into, even though I think it would be very needed much right now. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to break into. And so when I graduated college, I did like an internship. I saw a flyer at the student center for an internship at the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce, and I was like, might as well. so I applied. At this point, I was like, maybe a little law school. And then I took the LSAT. I was like, no, never again.
You and me both.
Yeah, it's. I mean, maybe I do it again now that I'm more disciplined. But at the time, I was very much a bad college student. So I applied for that internship. I got it. Eventually, a role opened up. I became their director of government relations. So I was a lobbyist for a bit. And then I networked a lot because, well, to be a lobbyist, like your worth is your network.
Yeah.
So
You're trying to convince people to do something.
Yeah, and like let me tell you, it is so hard if you're starting out and you don't have a network, which is why again I really wanted to make sure I had a community. Like building out the community was so important to me. During that time, I also the model that I created for PFA is a model that I had used to develop this like network, a similar networking group in Jersey politics. It's called Asian Women of Trenton Networking Group. It's a very bland name, but I co-founded it with another lobbyist. And we thought we were the only ones in Trenton politics, but turns out there's like at least over 30 people, like including elected officials, people working in the state, in the governor's office and the legislature. So we built out this community, and it was just a really great safe space for us to commiserate about our jobs, share job opportunities, share the latest gossip.
That's
yes,
amazing about networking, right? It's like get the real stories.
Yeah, and it really helps inform like who's actually pushing this policy, who's behind this bill. So I developed that networking group. I got my name out there, and then when the governor won his election, I was asked to interview for a role in the First Lady's office to be her policy director, and that was like in 2018. And then, he won in 2017, started a job in 2018, and I've been there ever since. I did a small stint on the governor's campaign to work on AAPI outreach. So that was also like a lot of fun. But yeah, now here I am. So it's like, I found myself into a lot of really good positions with a lot of hard work, but I'd say a little bit of luck in getting there.
Yeah. Would you say that you are more extroverted now, or like, how have you changed and evolved from your wallflower days?
I definitely a lot. Like I used to be such a like the stories I told you. But I think like finding the community, it always goes back to it. Like allowed me to feel a lot more comfortable and lean into the personality traits that I guess I just suppressed because I didn't think like, oh, that's for other people. But yeah, so like the confidence really helped me lean into or get more comfortable in leadership positions. And then I realize like I draw so much energy from being busy, but also being like surrounded by people. So
yeah.
And
I found something interesting. You said earlier to me, not during this Zoom, but earlier, about you don't like the idea of bragging, right? Like when you talk about yourself and stuff. And I find that so interesting. It's part of our culture, I think. Not to be mayabang, not to toot your own horn too much, but part of politics and even public policy or anything frontward facing that you're trying to make an impact on our community requires you really to be outspoken and to like make your voice heard. And so how do you balance, that characteristic that's inherent to our culture and then, try to succeed in an industry that we're so underrepresented in?
It's very hard. When I first started out in my role in the First Lady's office, my boss had told me it was okay for me to like sit back and listen because that's how you learn. That's how like when you pay attention and observe all the dynamics, then you have a better understanding of who the key players are. Then you understand like what everyone is talking about. But I stood back for the first few years to just get comfortable and understand. And then recently, like my boss, she really wanted maternity leave. And then I was able to really finally lean in and get a lot, like I had to step up. And now I feel a lot more comfortable being in these spaces. And I think, I hate to say it, goes back to community, just like that confidence of like knowing everyone else understands you and understands like what you've gone through or what, and like how you, and you like being in politics and looking the way I do. While I am very cute, I am very
That can be to your advantage,
yeah, yeah.
frankly. Uh-huh.
Yeah, but like I look very different from everyone else, so I already stand out. So it's hard to like really lean into really step up, but like I have to put myself in these positions because that's I always think to myself, what would, like, if I think about like people I admire in this industry, I think like what they would do in my situation. I try to emulate that, even though it's super uncomfortable. That's the only way I know to like, I have to get this thing done. I have to achieve this goal, make this progress. Otherwise, I think the fear of failing is also very much at play here. So it's all, it's like that's how I balance it. I balance my fear of failing with just needing to get things done. So yeah, that's how I get through.
And kind of go against what maybe your inherent nature, right? To be more behind the scenes. And I think that's some of the issue I find with interviewing people and trying to tell their stories or get them to share their stories. There's this kind of fear that they would be judged as, an imposter syndrome or something, right?
Yeah.
That they are overdoing it. But honestly, like some of the people that I feel are overinflating their credentials are not the real ones, right? They're you can tell. I feel like people have that I guess instinct when they know that someone is not real. And I ran across
Yeah.
a lot of those people in the Philippines, right? Like people that were just promoting themselves very heavily, but when you dig a little bit deeper, it's like, okay, that's not true, or you're not
Yeah.
clear. I
Yeah.
mean, we could see that in this year's elections, for example, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
maybe I'm wondering if part of that is part of, our culture of, okay, we don't want to be outed as fake or stuff. And that's what keeps us inhibited.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think we just like our culture, like just Filipino culture, Asian culture, we don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to stand out because, we don't want to ever be called out like for being wrong. So sometimes we overflate, we like what we've done, or we try to stay back and like blend in. And I think like it's the Filipino mentality that really gets to us and stops us from being able to grow as a community. That's why it's important to like really raise up leaders like those in FYLPRO who can really be the change makers that shake up the dynamic, the existing dynamic, and show people that like if my high school meter were to see me now, they'd be like, who the hell is that person? It's like completely different than who I was back then. And if I had a role model, if I saw like someone like me, then I would maybe I'd be a little farther in my career. No, I think I'm pretty good in my career. But
But
I
it
think
probably would have let you build your confidence early on, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know.
It would save me from a lot of embarrassing moments, at the very least.
Oh, well, now we have to ask, what is one of your embarrassing moments?
Oh, God.
Is there
I
one
think,
that like a learning lesson that you can impart, for our viewers?
I think it's mostly just like incidences where I like asked really stupid questions or questions that like I should have known, but because I didn't know the industry well enough, then I just like kind of fell flat in my face. And then I internalize it and it becomes so part of me that I can't let it go. Like maybe that I hope maybe that's another Filipino mentality I need to get rid of.
Yeah, let it go. Let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah, that is actually something very interesting. So when I was in the Philippines, there is kind of this, like you said, fear of failure, and then maybe not being able to take a risk, right? Because so they're risk averse because they
Yeah.
don't want to look like fall flat on their face, like you said, or look
Yeah.
bad. Because there's a lot of, especially nowadays with cancel culture, I think that, and things are just like live forever on social media or whatever. So I think maybe that's part of it too. But how do we increase our appetite for risk? Especially with politics. Maybe that's why not so many Filipinos are running, because they don't want to lose and look dumb. I don't know.
Yeah. I think there's a huge, like everyone always asks, like if I would ever run for run for office, and flat out no, because or unless I was backed into a corner. Because again, like one of the few Filipinos that are in this industry, I feel like if I needed to and I were asked to, then I would feel inclined to. But it's that fear that like, what if I do end up failing, and then just like politics, you have to ask a lot of people for money, and then it's like if you fail, then it's just like, I asked all that, I asked so much of people. I think it's like also at play, like you don't want to ask for people for help, but so much of running for office is asking people for help. So I have a lot of respect for people who run for office. Like shout out to my batchmate Josh, because Josh Ong Price, because he is running for office in Arkansas, and that is like I mean I can only imagine what it's like running for a state wide office. So
and here in Hawaii, Sergio, do you know Sergio?
Oh yeah, Sergio, he's also running for office. Lots of really great FYLPRO alum that I admire.
A lot of them, and I'm sure there are others that we're not remembering, but it's because I'm in Hawaii. So and Tyler Dos Santos is also, he's going for local election, city council. So cool. Yeah, so there, slowly I feel like there's more representation happening, but it definitely requires a lot of support, like you said, the importance of building community. And as we know, as we talked about, there are so many Filipino organizations. And I think one of the criticisms that we've talked about, or people talk about, is the fragmentation of our community, that there's so many competing organizations, competing interests. And, when you look at other cultures like Japanese culture or Chinese culture or, Korean culture, they really seem to be much more united in their vocal, their advocacies. But what about us? What do you think is keeping us from really being as impactful as we should be?
I think there's I think this kind of goes back to, I think about like my experience. A lot of Filipinos, they don't know Tagalog, or they don't know their language because the parents didn't teach them. And I think a lot of us,
they wanted to assimilate.
Yeah, they want to assimilate. Like I remember my mom told me that she didn't teach me because one of my aunts had said like, no, don't confuse them. So like it's that, I think the idea that we want to just not rock the boat, we want to stay where we are. We don't end up like, we have like tight Filipino communities within our families, but it's nothing like big. It's nothing like, we don't have like formal organizations that are connected. We do, like we try to, but everyone always operates in silos. And there's also the egos. There's a lot of egos that fall into this space. So it's hard to navigate that. And again, like there's the younger generation and there's the older generation. And there's like organizations like FYLPRO and PFA and stuff like that are trying to create that space for like our age group to make us to like have a united voice. And I think like my ultimate goal in all my work in the Filipino community and the API community is to create a united, to connect all these organizations. Like having worked on the governor's campaign on API outreach, I had a really great opportunity to see who the key players are, and not many people have a reason to reach out to them and get them on board because we wanted to support the governor. So not that many people have those connections. So it made it a lot easier for me to get a sense of like what the dynamics are. And I feel like we can create a united voice at least within New Jersey. I can't speak for the rest of the country, but within New Jersey to push certain policies forward. It's like recently the governor signed into law an AAPI commission. And I pushed for that, like I pushed for it so hard. And I learned a lot from Phil from Massachusetts, who's on the API commission in Massachusetts. Because I really wanted to learn, like, how do they develop it there? How can I develop in New Jersey? And it wasn't until I got someone else from the administration to like help me push for it that we were able to finally get it going. And now it's signed into law. We're packing this API commission. And now we're the second state in the nation to create, to mandate API curriculum or API history in our curriculum. That's huge. So like we're making a lot of moves because we were able to show that the API community is very strong. I mean, at least in voting power and in
No,
voice.
that's great. That's awesome that you were able to get that.
Yeah, and so hopefully like we can get a united community to like push forward for deeper policy. Like I would love to see, some sort of bill on disaggregated data, or so on and so forth. Like I think there's an opportunity to unite our voices and make a splash, but we have to come together first. So.
Yeah. And I think, I'm just thinking back on when I was younger, it's like, I don't remember a lot of people really getting excited about civic conversations, being politically active. I mean, of course, in college, like you said, there's opportunity to really be, activist with these rallies or, some of these discussions. And I think a lot of that has to do with identity, right? Because when you're that age, you're kind of discovering your identity, you're figuring out what you believe in, what you're passionate about. But like you said, when you get older, how do we continue to keep that passion about civic minded topics, like getting involved? I think people just don't, I don't know. I don't feel like there's interest in the Filipino population.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I think like when you're in college, you feel the energy of everyone else. So you're like, yeah, I got it. We have like, you feel like you're part of a community, you're united, but then you graduate and then you are focused on your career. You're like, you don't have that community. So it's easy to just like push it to the back of your head. Like, oh, that's something else that someone else can deal with that. So it's just, it just falls off, unfortunately.
Yeah. What do you think? I guess going forward, what do you think we could be doing to change that, to inspire more younger people to get into community building or politics, or really, do public policy like you're doing?
I think it's one, supporting candidates who run for office. So shout out to all FYLPRO alum that's running for office, all the Filipinos ever that are running for office.
Anyone who's running.
Yeah, you need the support. Most importantly, you don't need just the support like money. You need the vote. Like our community needs to vote. If you don't vote, then no one knows how big our community is, how like why they should pay attention to us. So like, I mean, I'm like, especially with primaries coming up, midterm elections coming up, like you have to vote. And I think the second one is just like uplifting leaders, like supporting organizations like FYLPRO, like PFA, like those are the ones that like they're shining examples of leaders who are excelling in their industries, who have passion, like connecting like these organizations with like the college organizations is sometimes difficult, but I think that's the next step really, to provide like that sort of pipeline into leadership. I mean, I'm not saying anything new. I feel like everyone's tried to do this before, but it's, I think that's the future, like mainly making sure we have a pipeline from college to FYLPRO, PFA.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And just keep the conversation going. Like you said, it's not new that we haven't really talked about it. We have, I think, and we're seeing slowly the benefits of it, right? We're seeing a lot more people run. We're seeing, like the Attorney General in California is Filipino, right? We're seeing more Filipinos in positions in politics and making more of a impact. But I mean, going back to like education, like you were saying, maybe going into high schools and getting them excited about government and things like that.
I think really showing people that it's not just, and I think like there's also a ton of people always think about politics as like DC, the president, the congressperson. Like they don't realize that there's a lot of power. There's a lot that happens in local government and state government. Like that's actually where it is most important, because it's most impactful and it most directly impacts like your way of life. So like there's a lot of opportunities there. Like I thought I was shooting even bigger than DC.
You were going international, like,
yeah, that's where I thought I was gonna go. But had I known that like there's like interning at a local like legislator's office, that's an opportunity for you to like be able to make these connections and rise into the ranks. And if you want to run for office, like run for school board, like that is I mean, I don't know if you want to run for school board now. It's kind of controversial.
I know.
But yeah, but that's like, it's like not as difficult as people think. Like if you put your foot in the door, you can make network with a lot of people. It becomes so much easier to get into those spaces. And again, like I made it, so
Yeah,
like
and you
anyone
were
can
a
make it in this
wallflower,
space.
so there you
Yeah.
go. Well, tell us how people can connect with you, where they can find your organization, and if they have questions, of course, you're the role model. Now you can be a mentor to others, young people that may be interested in pursuing this. And yeah, it's just about spreading the word that this is a career that we need people to go into, I
Yeah.
think. So yeah, tell us
Yeah.
your
So
plug.
if you want to follow professional Filipino American youth, PFA, you can, like, our website is pfa.org, or you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at ProFilAmYouth. You can also just friend me on Facebook. One of the best pieces of advice someone told me going into politics was friend everyone on Facebook. And I know it seems like it's a dying medium, but it's the
Yeah.
best way to get like that personal connection. And like I always tell people the strongest relationships are genuine friendships. So friend people on Facebook. And so friend me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram. I'm at Lauren Lollipop, LALIPOP. And yeah, I am always happy to talk to people who want to get into this industry, who want to get more involved in community building, who have a passion for the community, but don't know where to put that energy. So reach
That's
out.
wonderful. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Lauren. This was such a good conversation. And I think it's amazing the work that you've done and how far you've come. And I think that's an inspiration to a lot of people who may be, kind of feeling that right now, right? If they're kind of considering it, but a little scared. So, and that's the purpose of our Chismisan every Friday is to inspire. So thank you so much,
Yeah.
Lauren.
No, thank you so much, Annalisa. I love these Chismisans. It's just a great way to get to know our alumni. So thank you so much for starting this series up. Can't wait to see the rest.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. And if you guys want to be on it, message us, DM us, FYLPRO. We always want to share successful and inspiring or even challenging. It doesn't have to be rosy. If you're having a hard time, we're here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, Lauren, you have a great day. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.